What's up guys, Houndish here, and today just got a couple of quick Destiny 2 things to talk about. First up, we have some information about strike-specific loot. We also have some other confirmations about things and tweets from Bungie. On top of this, it looks like Destiny 3 is indeed already in development. I'll talk about that in a moment. And there's a couple of additional things I wanted to talk about. Before we go any further though, there will be some server maintenance today, and that's from 8 AM PST up until 12 PM PST, which I believe is 4 PM till 8 PM in the UK. So the servers are going to be off for a little while, but when they come back on, the weekly reset will happen and we'll have the return of the faction rally. So I'll keep you guys up to date on that. Just bear in mind the downtime for the game. So first up, I wanted to point something out. This tweet comes from Mark Noseworthy. He says, "We are absolutely supporting each other and are constant soundboards for CG Barrett's leadership of D2's future. As players too, we are excited for what's in store this update and beyond." And this was actually in response to a tweet, where people were saying, where is Noseworthy and Luke Smith at this point? The key thing to take away from this is that it's very clear that Chris Barrett, is the leadership of Destiny 2 right now and the future content coming to the game. But of course, it is still very likely that Mark Noseworthy and Luke Smith are either working on, the big Year 2 or the beginning of Year 2 update, the Taken King equivalent, but also probably Destiny 3, which I'll talk about in a moment. But someone asked Chris Barrett, don't know if you answered this, but any word on Strike, a Lost Sector specific loot being worked on? And Chris Barrett said, more thematic loot that drops from named bosses and unique activities is definitely something we're planning to add. So obviously it's promising that this is a focus for Bungie. If you don't know about Strike specific loot already, essentially back in D1 we had a set of very specific, themed items which dropped exclusively from strikes. And the cool thing about this is, it gave us a reason to continuously play through those strikes, and we also had heroic modifiers and all of these other, reward systems going on. And that is 100% something which is, really sorely missed in Destiny 2. And this is where I wanted to point out a quick clip of Luke Smith and Noseworthy talking about, strike-specific loot or loot actually dropping out in the world. And this was during the marketing cycle for the Taken King. Just listen to this for a minute.
We want you to find cool gear out in the world, man. We actually want to take a bunch of that gear out of the tower, out of saving your money, and put it on just sort of novel new idea on characters, bosses, things like that.
Yeah. So, like I said, that was going into the Taken King, and Luke Smith was, talking about how they'd taken some of that loot that was in the tower, some of the stuff that you'd buy, and they were actually giving it or making it drop from bosses and different places in the world. Of course, we had strike-specific loot, but we also had secrets and things like that. But the question is, these guys led the Taken King, they led a lot of these big changes to the game. Why on earth didn't Destiny 2 have strike-specific loot and secret content as well? It's frustrating because Luke Smith, speaks so relatively passionately about this being in the game in this interview, but of course then down the road in Destiny 2, and it's something that is completely missing. It really should have been there, but nonetheless, Chris Barrett is taking the reins now, and we're going to see more strike and themed boss loot. Whether we're going to see this inside of the next expansion or whether it's going to take until September though is pretty unclear. I just hope they get it done ASAP. And it is worth pointing out once more that Chris Barrett did say, to be clear, we are adding more collectibles and hidden secrets in future expansions. So at the very least we should expect to see, some more collectibles and potentially some hidden quests in the next DLC. Moving on though, Destiny 3 is apparently in development already. So inside of a Kotaku Australia article, the author Kirk Hamilton said, given what we know about the 10-year franchise deal made with publisher Activision, it seems safe to assume that this will happen at least one more time down the road, and they're talking about, an actual game release, presumably a game that will be called Destiny 3. And in brackets he says, Kotaku news editor Jason Schreier tells me he hears that Destiny 3 is indeed already in development as expected. Imagine, if you will, angry Destiny 3 players complaining about how much better Destiny 2 was and demanding that Bungie bring back cut features. Of course he's just joking at this point, but what he's saying is, wouldn't it be remarkable if we ended up in a position where we were missing the things that were in Destiny 2. But on the subject of Destiny 3 actually being developed, this may seem pretty crazy to some people, and I am definitely, I'm in the position where I believe all hands should be on deck, in fixing Destiny 2 right now. But you also have to remember that certain teams at Bungie may not necessarily actually have that much stuff to do on Destiny 2, world designers, for example. Destiny 2 already has a ton of real estate. That doesn't necessarily need to change. It's more about the investment side of things being fixed and the endgame progression, all of these kind of things. So it's entirely possible that the people who are working on D3 aren't necessarily needed on D2 right now, and it doesn't necessarily have a huge influence. But at the same time, it's definitely understandable that people in the community may be a bit frustrated by the idea that they're already focusing on the next thing while the one we've got right now needs so much work. Either way, that's the news on D3, and I'll be curious to hear what you guys think below. A little random note I wanted to point out, the latest hashtag on the Bungie forums is hashtag bring back random roles. So before it was remove Eververse, and now if you scroll through, you'll see a hell of a lot of bring back random roles right there. This is the next thing the community are pushing for, I guess. It will be very interesting to see if they, reverse their kind of plans with weapons so far, or in which ways they, make weapons much more interesting, because come September, if there is going to be a big drop, definitely there will have to be some fairly significant changes. So either way, I just thought I'd share that with you guys. I thought it was pretty interesting. As we've heard about, we do have some pretty exciting updates coming over the next few weeks for Destiny 2. They're definitely good updates for people still playing the game, but I don't think they're going to entice that many people who've completely quit to actually come back and play. But of course, with the changes they're currently making and potentially a DLC within the next 2 months, I think Bungie have a really good chance to bring back a lot of people, but they're going to have to make sure big changes are made, make them very clear, and then go through the marketing cycle, of the new DLC, make it look good and everything like that. But of course, it actually has to be good. It can't just look good. So anyway, guys, I wanted to round that up. A bunch of pretty varied but fairly interesting stuff. Let me know your thoughts on any of the stuff in the comment section. What do you think of strike-specific loot returning? Let me know your thoughts on any of the other changes. What do you think about Destiny 3 being in development already? I always love to read your comments below. But if you have enjoyed the video, a like is very much appreciated. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit subscribe to see more Destiny 2 content. And for now, I hope you have an awesome day.